Ugarte ready to make his first debut as a new Manchester United player on Saturday after playing 90 minutes for the Uruguay national team yesterday. Ligt has an absolute nightmare on international duty, being substituted at half-time for the Netherlands, and Antony refuses to leave Manchester United in the final days of the Turkish transfer window. These are some of the stories we will be discussing on this morning's show. But before we get into that, please do me one small favour. Smash a like on today's video. Let's try and see 500 likes on this episode. And if this is your first time watching, please also subscribe to the channel. I'm live every day at 8:30 and 6 p.m. UK time. Make sure you get involved for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. Right, I want to start the show off by talking a little bit about Antony and reacting to a story that broke a couple of hours ago. So for anybody who's unaware, apparently Fenerbahce, who are obviously managed by Jose Mourinho, were trying to do a deal for Antony in the final days of the window. So for anybody who's unaware, the Turkish transfer window closes this coming Friday. So Turkish clubs are still signing players at the moment. So in theory, they could buy Antony, they could buy Casemiro. That's why, those two players have been linked with exits over the last kind of week or so. Now, obviously, the English transfer window is closed, which means that Man United wouldn't be able to sign a replacement. But, obviously, Turkish clubs still are able to do business. It would just mean that Man United wouldn't be able to buy a replacement until January. Now, apparently, Fenerbahce have been trying to do a loan with an obligation to buy for Antony. But the stories coming out this morning are saying that apparently Antony wants to feature more regularly, but his preference is to stay at Manchester United, even if Fenerbahce make a formal offer for the player. I mean, you can't really blame him, to be honest. He's on 200 grand a week. He was on 20 grand a week at Ajax. He probably can't believe his luck. He's sat there thinking, he's living the dream, really, isn't he? He's playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world on absolutely life-changing amounts of money. It just shows that he doesn't really have that much aspirations, I don't think. 24 years of age, Antony is, right? And he has the opportunity to go. He has the opportunity to go and, get a move, to go and play actual football. But it seems like he doesn't want to do that. Now, I don't know. I would love for Antony to leave in the final days of the window. And that's not me being toxic or negative. I just think that at the moment, he's not going to get game time because Amad Diallo's ahead of him, Garnacho's ahead of him, and Rashford's ahead of him. What's the point in him being here if he's not going to play? And even when he does play, let's be honest, he doesn't really contribute very much. So I think the best thing for everybody would be for him to go out on loan, give him a year's loan away from Manchester United. Hopefully he finds form again. Then either you bring him back or you sell him next summer, because realistically, he's probably going to go down as, I think, the worst transfer in our history, genuinely, by way of transfer fee as well. Obviously, we've bought people like Lukaku and Pogba, but Lukaku and Pogba did actually bring us some good moments, whereas Antony, I think the only good moment I can remember of Antony was when he scored that goal against Barcelona, and he's now going into his third season at Manchester United. So, yeah. Whereas Lukaku and Pogba, I know it didn't end up working out in the end, but they were good players, and they did get goals, they got assists, and they did contribute a lot. I know, obviously, they were very expensive. But yeah, I probably would say that as it stands at the moment, Antony will go down as... I don't like the word flop, because I think it's a little bit it's a little bit... not weird, but yeah, but... for argument's sake, I guess he is a flop at Manchester United, isn't he? I always give players 2 seasons. That's the way I work. I never will, call a player a flop after 1 season. I just don't do that. I'll always give them 2 seasons. So Andre Onana, this is his 2nd season now. He's got to improve. If he doesn't, I think at the end of the year, serious questions need to be asked. Antony's obviously had 2 seasons now. He was okay in his first season. I'd probably say he was like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. And last year, he was absolutely terrible. Obviously he doesn't decide his price, but looking through the prices we've paid, right? We paid Ajax 95 million euros for Antony. I mean, even Harry Maguire, I know his transfer fee was massive, right? But Harry Maguire's been okay at times. He hasn't been terrible. He's not worth the money we paid, but he's not awful. Romelu Lukaku, I think, was okay at times. Obviously, Di Maria was an awful signing. Casemiro, I'm just going through the list of the most expensive signings. Our most expensive signing was Paul Pogba, who, in all fairness, I think, at points was decent. Obviously, in the end, it didn't work out, though, and he left as a free agent. And now I think is banned from football, isn't he, for some sort of... is it doping? I don't know. Some sort of something they found in his blood, effectively, which meant that he couldn't play football. But yeah, so Antony leaving the club now looks apparently quite unlikely. Bit of a shame. I think it would have been the best move for everybody. Al says, how did Antony make the Brazilian national team? He must have had some talent. He was quite decent at Ajax, wasn't he, Antony? He was decent. So, yeah. But moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about Matthijs de Ligt then, shall we? So, I don't know if anybody watched the game last night. There was quite a lot of international football on last night, and I always like to try and watch our Manchester United players who are away on international duty. I like to keep up with it. I like to see how they get on. And Matthijs de Ligt last night had an absolute nightmare of a game, to be completely honest with you. He made a terrible mistake in the game last night against Germany, and Germany scored. And then in the game before that, obviously there's 2 international games, wasn't there? There was one yesterday and I think one on the weekend. In the game on the weekend, he made another awful mistake as well. And at half-time, he was substituted by Ronald Koeman. He didn't have an injury. It was purely because of mistakes that he was making. And I just hope and pray that this doesn't completely shatter his confidence, because the media reaction to this today, it's not good. It really is not good for Matthijs de Ligt. They're saying that he might not ever get picked for the national team again. And it's gone absolutely mad. Now, some people will say, oh, I don't really care because I want him to play for Man United. But football is all about mentality. It's about momentum. It's about, what's the word? It's about confidence. And to be substituted at half-time in, let's be honest, what was pretty much a pointless friendly. As I said, he made a terrible mistake against Bosnia, and Bosnia scored. He made a terrible mistake against Germany, and Germany scored directly as a result of his mistake. And then, he was substituted at half-time. He played 45 minutes against Germany and came off at half-time. And Ronald Koeman even came out after the match and kind of said and spoke about it and said that he took him off for his own protection because of how badly he was playing. And I don't know, it's difficult, because I spoke to a couple of people who support the Netherlands, and they said effectively that Matthijs de Ligt has had these mistakes in his game for a very long time, since he left Ajax. Like, he's a very good player, but he does have big mistakes in his game. And there are some people today even saying that Harry Maguire should start against Southampton over de Ligt, because purely from a confidence perspective, purely from the fact that Matthijs de Ligt effectively had an absolute nightmare last night for the Netherlands. All of the Dutch press are saying that he should never play for the Netherlands again, saying that he's had his last chance. So it can't be easy for him, It can't be easy for him, for his family, to know that, the public reaction to you is this negative and this bad. Now, obviously, it's now up to Erik ten Hag to put his arm around him and to say, you know what, people make mistakes, you've got to learn from it, you've got to move on. That's what has to happen now. But it's not particularly good, is it, really? You want your players, when they go on international duty, to go and do well. And effectively, he didn't do well. He did terribly and had to come off because he was playing so poorly. Now, I don't really care that much about international football, Ant says he made some mistakes, but his overall performance wasn't terrible. Koeman threw him under the bus. Yeah. I think it's more the point I'm trying to make here is it's more to do with the the mentality and the confidence and the momentum and all the rest of it. I think that's more the issue here, because obviously you don't want your players to be coming off at half time because they're playing so badly. That can't be good for their mental. It just isn't good, is it? I'd much rather sit here and say that de Ligt had a 10 out of 10 performance, and he was amazing, but that wasn't the case. He had to be substituted in effectively what was a pointless friendly against Germany. So hopefully he bounces back. I actually now personally think that Maguire's going to start on Saturday, I think. And that's just my opinion based on what I've seen. I think that Maguire obviously did quite well against Ireland last week, obviously playing for England. Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. It is really difficult. I mean, at the end of the day, Erik ten Hag wanted to sign Matthijs de Ligt, so he's got to now get him in that team. He's got to give him the confidence, and he's got to make it work. That's Erik ten Hag's job. that's the latest on Matthias de Ligt. But let's try and spin a bit of a positive on that, because Manuel Ugarte, on the other hand, played 90 minutes last night for the Uruguay national team. He played the whole game, and he was, I think, the man of the match of that game. It was 0-0, so I'm not going to sit here and say that he, scored 5 goals and got 12 assists, but based on the stats from the game, I think he came away as the man of the match. It was a 0-0 game, which I'll be honest, I didn't watch the game. I watched the clips this morning, but I've seen all the stats. I've seen all the people talking about, how good of a performance he put in last night. So last night they played, who was it? I think it was Venezuela, I think. Let me just double check that. Yeah, he played the full 90 minutes, which should now mean that there isn't really any excuses for him not to be available for the game on Saturday. Obviously, the only thing that kind of worries me, it was against Venezuela. Played the full 90 minutes. Go back and watch the clips of Manuel Ugarte. So I've got the stats here for you. So he played 90 minutes. He made 100% of his dribbles were successful, 83% pass completion, 8 out of 12 duels won, 6 recoveries, 3 interceptions. He completed 3 tackles out of the 4 that he attempted. And on the Soccerway app, he got the man of the match. He got the highest, out of 10 rating. But the only thing that maybe worries me slightly is, obviously where was that game? Was it in Uruguay or in Venezuela? Let's have a look. That game was... So that was a World Cup qualifier. Just trying to see where the game was. Okay, so it was in Venezuela, I think. Yeah, it was in Venezuela. So I don't know how long it takes to fly from Venezuela to... Let's have a look. So, obviously, he's then got to get back to England. That's the point I'm trying to make here. I mean, it's probably quite a long flight, isn't it? Let's have a look. I'm just trying to work out how long the flight would be. I mean, I'm sure he gets like a private jet, so it'd be quick, wouldn't it? Or quicker than like, a standard plane where you have to change and all the rest of it. And, I can't seem to find the flight time, but it's going to be at least like 10 to 15 hours, isn't it? So even if he say left straight after the game, he's probably only getting back into Manchester today. I assume everybody would have today off, I imagine, all of the players. That would be my guess. So, yeah, the point I'm trying to make here is I know sometimes the South American players after the international break can be a little bit tired because of obviously, time differences and all the rest of it. Someone in the chat saying that apparently it's a 14-hour flight. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's going to be a long way, isn't it? South America is pretty far from England. So, yeah, hopefully he's fine. Hopefully he's available to start the game on Saturday. Like, he managed to play the full 90 minutes. He did look a little bit tired towards the end of it, which is obviously worth noting, but I think he should be fine to start the game. Obviously, Casemiro wasn't part of the Brazil national team, so he'll be like 100% fit and available. But I would rather give Manuel Ugarte an opportunity on Saturday than keep playing Casemiro. I would rather give Toby Collier an opportunity than keep playing Casemiro. I honestly, I won't be that bothered whether it's Manuel Ugarte or Toby Collier. It just has to be one of those two players. Like, I would be fine with that. Sokar says Ligt was away as well. Yeah, obviously, Lisandro Martinez, Amad Diallo, Garnacho, all of these players were off playing for their national teams. And, in South America or in Africa. So it is always a little bit sluggish after the international break, because obviously these players have been off travelling. They play a game. And Lightning says Southampton is pretty far from Manchester as well. 12:30 kickoff is nasty. Yeah, it's not ideal, is it? But we can't make excuses. Southampton, to me, are a championship level side when you look at the team they have. And Man United have, let's be honest, a team of international superstars. Whether they're good enough is another question for another day. But, you've got the Brunos, you've got the Martinezes, you've got all of these top players. So, yes. So that's the latest on Manuel Ugarte. It looks like he will be available to make his debut on Saturday. He looks like he is match fit now, having put in what I would describe as a very, very, very good performance against Venezuela yesterday. Now, we've got a comment coming in here which I wanted to react to. Where is it? So someone called Les says, I am Erik ten Hag in. Do you think there are certain players trying to force him out? I honestly do. He says, and he keeps playing the same players, which IMO will end in his demise at the club, and I don't want that. He goes on to say, what are your opinions or other fans' opinion on this topic? I'm not trying to be toxic. I just think it is an issue that we have, and they are stopping us going forward by controlling how bad we play. It's impossible to say. I mean, we're just completely speculating, aren't we? Impossible to give, like an actual informed opinion. Do I think the players want rid of Erik ten Hag? I mean, I'm sure some of them do, yeah. I don't know who, but I'm sure some of them don't like him. I'm sure, of course. It's the same in any form of life. If you work for a company, you might not like your boss. You might not like your manager. You're not going to be able to please everybody. You've got a big squad. Players will be unhappy if they've not been picked. I don't think it's as black and white as every player at Manchester United wants Erik ten Hag sacked. I don't agree with that. I think that's far from it. I think there's probably maybe a couple of players who aren't happy, aren't happy with the game time, maybe aren't happy with comments Erik ten Hag's made, maybe don't like the tactics, maybe don't look up to him or respect him. Someone like Casemiro, who's won 5 Champions Leagues and gets benched against Liverpool on the weekend and has all of the blame put on him, he's going to look at that situation and think, why is this man benching me who's never won a Champions League? He's not a serial winner. So I'm sure there is some level of, frustration towards the manager, but that just happens in professional football, I'm sure even like Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp and all of these other top managers, I'm sure some of the players in their squads don't like them, because if they've not been picked or if they're telling them to do things that they don't want to do. But it's all about respect, isn't it? And I think that's the problem that Erik ten Hag has. You have players in this team at Manchester United who think they're better than they are and probably look to Erik ten Hag and maybe don't respect him. I think that's more of the question is, do the players respect Erik ten Hag? I think that's more of a, I think that's more the question that you're trying to get at. I don't think, they're trying to get him sacked because I don't know. I don't think it's got to that point yet. I think they are trying. I just think that they're not good enough, effectively. And the easiest thing for the players to do is to blame the manager, to blame the tactics, to blame the formation. That's the easiest thing to do. Instead of looking at themselves and saying that, effectively, we're not good enough, we're letting the fans down, we're letting ourselves down, it's easier to say, oh, well, the manager's got the tactics wrong, or, this substitution did this. So it's a good question. I don't think we're quite at the point yet to say, the players are trying to get him sacked. But yeah. And as I said, it's completely speculation, But the thing is, right, we've had that problem at Manchester United for decades, haven't we? Since Sir Alex left. We've had players who think they're better than they are, and players who effectively do throw the manager under the bus. And the reason for that is because, these players have long contracts. These players, no matter what happens, the players aren't going to go anywhere, These people on big contracts with big amounts of money. So, yeah. People talking about Zidane in the chat. I mean, Zidane's not going to come to Manchester United. He's just simply not. He said he doesn't want to manage in England. He can't speak English. Why would he come to Manchester United? Why would he go from Real Madrid, where he won, 3 Champions Leagues in a row, to a team who can't even qualify for the Champions League? I'm not even convinced that Zidane comes to Manchester United and, and we suddenly become good. I just don't see it. I think we're so far away. Even a Pep Guardiola or a Jurgen Klopp would struggle at Manchester United, I think. They do better than Ten Hag, but I don't think they'd win the league immediately. I think it would take time. Yeah, but that's my opinion. Obviously, you can disagree. I just don't think it's as simple as get a different manager and suddenly we'll be challenging for the title. We've tried that over the last 10 years and it's never worked, has it? So why is it suddenly going to work now? I just don't buy into it. But yeah. Right. I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back live at 6 p.m. for the evening show. Please make sure to drop a like before you leave. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. This has been Daily Red Devil. Have a lovely day, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll speak to you all later. Bye for now.